Welcome, and thank you for tuning in to the Supply Chain Dialogues podcast, where we will be diving into the procurement, supply chain, and operations management world. We got insights for you into new, old, and even outdated truths, and hopefully that will make you more successful in your job by expanding your knowledge of solutions which are out there. My name is Daniel Helmig, your host for the show. I ran supply chains, procurements, and operations globally in 5 industries for more years than I care to remember.
And I'm Amy, the AI-generated co-host voice of the show. I will ask the questions and provide from time to time facts and figures provided from my other AI siblings.
Thank you, Amy, and let's dive into the show. This episode is called Is Operations Outsourcing Still a Viable Option Today? First of all, let me start by saying that I've done many outsourcing over the years in different industries. But that does not mean that I would answer the question automatically with a big yes. So this podcast will not give you the standard answer you will hear from most people. You will find that the solutions today are not that simple anymore. Let's start at the beginning with some context. At the start of the Industrial Revolution, outsourcing was not in fashion, not even an option. Operations were as much as possible vertically integrated. Even in 1913, automotive companies had iron ore come in on one side of the factory, while the cars, that at that point in time more looked like horse-drawn carriages but without the horses, rolled out on the other side. What happened in the automotive industry was similar in nearly all industries worldwide. Each country had massive conglomerates established by larger-than-life entrepreneurs that combined manufacturing, hotels, hospitals, railroads, etc. under one umbrella. The reason behind that were rather benign. Communication was slow, remember letters? And experience and knowledge were not as readily available as today. Companies had to educate their staff themselves. Further reasons were economies of scale, company cost control, and capital access. Now today, access to knowledge, capital, as well as communication speed is less of an issue. Where it still is, you can still see the same consolidation of businesses, and they are still alive and thriving. One of the guys who saw the writings on the wall was Jack Welch, admired and hated CEO from GE from 1981 to 2001. His phrase, "your back end is other people's front end," was adequate as a guide for identifying improvement opportunities in his days. He changed the face of American and later global capitalism by following the theories of Milton Friedman, a famous economist and Nobel laureate. Milton argued that businesses should generate profits through efficient operations, innovations, and market competition. He argued that business should not use shareholder money to support social causes or political movements, as this would violate the fiduciary duty that companies owe to their shareholders.
During Jack Welch's tenure, he oversaw a significant restructuring and divestiture program at GE, selling off several underperforming or non-core businesses. The exact number of outsourcings that Welch oversaw during his time at GE is estimated to be in the range of 200 to 300. Welch's strategy of focusing on GE's core businesses and shedding non-core ones, he dubbed as fix, sell, or close. The singular focus on shareholder value by Welch and most of the industries often until today had led in the eyes of many to short-termism and a lack of investment in social and environmental issues. In contrast, others contend it is an essential aspect of corporate responsibility and accountability.
Before and after the Second World War, American iconic company leaders took care of their employees, and I quote David Gallis from his book, The Man Who Broke Capitalism, understanding that by doing so they were taking care of the country and ultimately their own interests. This was similar in Europe. Remnants of this can still be seen in the sport, housing, cultural, and educational investment companies supported in these times. At the same time, in the US, from 1948 to 1979, salaries grew in the same pace as productivity.
Daniel, it is interesting that you talk about Jack Welch and the focus on shareholder value in this way. Were you not a big fan of Walsh and his methodology in the past yourself?
It is true, Amy. I was a big fan of Welsh's management style, like most people with a successful career in the 90s and 2000s. Welsh's book was one of the best read in my library, and I was a big proponent of outsourcing on the same lines. It seemed the right thing to do, and every journal, business school was touting into the same horn. But now, 20 to 30 years later, I see the impact of these decisions in a different light. Whole manufacturing structures and capabilities moved due to this singular focus on shareholder value out of Western countries, letting the former middle class sink into poverty and despair. Countries lost whole strategic industries, and while Asian governments supported the trend by providing massive subsidies to bring in more manufacturing knowledge, European and US governments gave their main subsidies to agriculture, energy, by the way, mainly fossil fuels, and infrastructure, following the corporate thinking that business should only focus on shareholder value and not on employee or country welfare. In the US, the top 3 of subsidies is as well healthcare. One wonders whether there is any connections between companies focusing just on shareholder value and no longer taking care of employees, and the government taking over. You do not see the same level of subsidies in Europe because we have still a working social contract between government companies and employees when it comes to healthcare. The good news is that it's never late to learn from experience. We all had to learn during the pandemic, for example, and already years before, that global supply chains are less stable than we wanted. We as well have seen in front of our eyes the crumbling of former political beliefs, often called trade brings people together, trade, not aid, or commerce conquers all. And finally, we deal with the massive impact that the old beliefs of a singular focus on shareholder value had on greenhouse gas emissions. If you just focus on shareholder value, how much money do you invest really in filters, environmental innovation, and environmental scientists in your shop, if you just do it like Milton Friedman taught? Now, in this context, let's focus as well on the positives of this in other areas of the world. China, Vietnam, India, and many other countries had a sizable improvement in the living conditions of the people, moving up from destitute living arrangements to higher standards. We just have to find a way in the future that makes further development not an either-or case, but allows us all to make a peaceful, decent, and climate-positive living, whether you're in the US, which, by the way, is just 4% of Earth's population, Europe with 10%, Russia 1.8%, China, India, or the continent of Africa, each 18%. Otherwise, if you just look from our place on the planet, we become like the cartoon, where people sit in one boat with a leak on one side. People there are frantically trying to get the water out of the boat, while on the other side, people sit relaxed, and one person says to the other, "I'm so glad that the hole is not on our side." Now, this was a bit of a long excursion of the outsourcing background. I think it was relevant to deep dive into this to understand that outsourcing and offshoring are not natural laws, but just one of many instruments that can be used to make us competitive. Let's look at the benefits that were gained from outsourcing. Only by knowing those, we can also try to find other ways to achieve maybe more holistic benefits for corporations, employees, and the social and physical environment. You can also call this a focus on triple bottom line: profit, people, and planet. To be competitive, any part of an organization should constantly be assessed whether it is as good and competitive as external contract manufacturers, suppliers, or competitors.
Over the past 40 years, numerous companies have decided that they cannot operate aspects of their company as effectively as externals. As a result, they typically adopted one of two strategies. Either they spun off portions of their operations, converting their back-end operations into a new external front-end to enhance their competitiveness. Companies like Delphi, Visteon, and Signify were created via this approach. Or they outsource their operations to external manufacturing services providers, short called EMS, with Flextronics, Honhai or Foxconn, Venture, Plexus, Kaifa, and Celestica being the largest players. EMS providers have distinguished themselves by providing excellent operations and supply chain management, including quickly and efficiently responding to sudden demand surges.
In the first case, mergers and acquisitions as well as spin-off knowledge are available in abundance. Banks and external companies like Deloitte, Kearney, KPMG, McKinsey, and PwC have a deep-rooted knowledge based on thousands of business cases. Today, every CEO and CFO should possess the knowledge or at least have knowledgeable staff to understand what is required for an effective spin-off. In the second case, the ability of operations and supply chain personnel to prepare and execute the task of outsourcing operations to an EMS is often limited. Moreover, allowing the outsourced organization to define the statement of work is akin to a turkey voting for Christmas, as succinctly expressed by a British Liberal Party politician.
Nevertheless, the potential benefits of outsourcing operations are considerable. One of the most well-known examples is the collaboration between Apple and Honhai in China, which helped propel Apple to become the world's most valuable company in recent years. Many other companies utilized contract manufacturers or upskilled suppliers to produce quality products that often exceed the level of quality of their former internal operations.
Recently, we see now an opposite trend to pull back production either in-house or nearshore, or reshore, friendshore, whatever you would like to call it. If you're interested more into that, see the 2-part blog post that we have on our website, Implementing 21st Century Supply Chain. So what now? Let us therefore assess the potential for reducing or increasing the vertical integration level of the company before jumping to conclusion. As always in these podcasts, we take the dialogue approach of questions to dig deeper.
Question 1. What are the company's core competencies, and are these competencies critical to the company's success?
Outsourcing or spinning off parts that are not core is a viable option. This review should be brutally honest. No area should be sacrosanct. In this context, benchmarking between own products and competitors through competitive teardown analysis and cost estimating is essential. Today, a comparison of greenhouse gas footprint is as well relevant, since setting up new operations without assessing the greenhouse gas emission impact is ignoring the soon-to-becoming stricter legislation. In Europe, it's about 2026 where the next significant change is happening. But as well, the public and therefore customer opinion will make a long-tailed supply chain very difficult to maintain in the future. And to make matters even more complex, are all operations identified still non-core if you look at them from a triple bottom line perspective?
Question 2. Are there any operational inefficiencies or bottlenecks within the company that could be addressed by outsourcing or spinning off certain operations?
How is the competition doing? Do they operate at a lower cost, higher margin, or higher quality than your company? If so, outsourcing or spinning off these operations could lead to an increased efficiency and profitability. Alternatively, a manufacturing quality fitness program becoming more agile and digital could be an alternative solution. This does not have to take decades. Thanks to a management board's foresight and guts, I was able to launch and implement with my team a quality revolution in one of my former employers with over 50,000 manufacturing employees in 18 months, called Lean Six Sigma. Their good quality has improved significantly since then, and since they were doing a lot of other things as well, their share price went up by 50%.
Question 3. What risks are associated with outsourcing or spinning off operations, and can these risks be adequately managed?
It is essential to carefully consider the potential risks, such as intellectual property theft, quality control issues, supply chain disruptions, and have a plan to manage these risks. After more than a quarter of a century of globalization, reaching all corners of this world, enough information is available to assess the risk clearly. In worst case, just Google or Bing it.
Question 4. What is the potential impact on employees and other stakeholders?
Outsourcing or spinning off operations can have a significant impact on knowledge management, employees, customers, and other stakeholders. So this aspect needs to be considered carefully and dealt with a mitigation plan. Alternatively, you can involve the employees and workers' councils in the options at hand and give them a chance to be part of the solution, rather than just being a problem.
Question 5. What do customers and investors say? Do they see value in the company's vertical integration?
While this should not be a deciding factor for outsourcing, it is good to know and should be considered in the change management communication. In the end, though, the firm's boards need to decide what is best for the company. Everyone else just has an opinion.
Question 6. Do you consider all options with the same open mind, including in-house and outsourced production or licensing intellectual property when exploring new markets?
Continuing with a brick-and-mortar strategy in every new market or shipping semi or finished products from the so-called single competence manufacturing center worldwide, generally near the headquarters, as we all know, are tactics often based on strategic laziness or arrogance of the leadership team of a company. I've seen these crazy decisions by brilliant people being made so many times. Building highly automated plants in low-cost regions or keeping highly automated plants in low-cost regions when the risks are mounting due to education of low-cost competition, supply chain issues, dissipation of subsidies, and.
Question 7. Are the above topics regularly discussed emotionless in the executive and management boardroom?
By thoroughly evaluating these questions, a managing director can make an informed decision about whether outsourcing or spinning off operations is a viable strategy for reducing the vertical integration level of the company. And yes, it is more complex than 20 to 30 years ago, since the singular shareholder value focus is no longer the one instrument out of the toolbox. But, based on all the information and insights at your fingertips, can we not expect that today managing directors and teams are the best equipped people ever roaming this earth to make educated decisions? Okay, now let's look at the size of the prize. As we always conclude, should you have identified a gap in your company's operation based on the above questions? Congratulations. This presents an excellent opportunity to enhance your operations' resilience and profitability, besides fulfilling as well the requirements of the rest of the triple bottom line. Outsourcing operations can yield a cost of sales improvement ranging from 15 to 40%, unless the production is highly automated. The reasons for this are very much linked to what I mentioned before with regard to subsidies and cheap energy, unfortunately normal fossil fuel-based. The alternative to outsourcing is the improvement of one's operations excellence through well-proven continuous improvement processes like Lean, Six Sigma, theory of constraints, and total cost management. These can yield a similar cost of sales and speed improvement. Rather than spending millions on outsourcing the current state, hiring some excellent minds in operation management may be more effective and empowering them to achieve the desired results with a new, modern future state. And as always, inaction and expecting better results are not an option if you know that you have a gap against your competition. In the famous, well-known words of Albert Einstein, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. Should you outsource to other countries or to some more efficient continental or regional suppliers? Here is a blueprint based on what I've learned over many similar exercises.
Okay, let's get started on the blueprint. Daniel, how long does it take to change your operations setup?
About 24 months it will take from doing the current state, assessing it, setting up the blueprint, and then executing. Not longer. The board sponsor should be the CEO. This cannot be delegated. If the CEO, and with that the supervisory board, is not okay with any outsourcing, let's just don't even start. We will fail. And you will fail as well if the CEOs change during the outsourcing process. It is therefore vitally important to have an ongoing outsourcing covered in the very first briefing of incoming CEOs, giving them then true optionality.
Who should lead the effort?
The lead should be the head of the affected business or operation and the head of supply chain, plus the MD of an outsourcing partner. It is vital that both sides need to be appropriately incentivized. No one does this out of the goodness of their heart or because they feel it's just a wonderful idea. Please just remember once again the turkeys we have talked about before.
What should be the project set up to be successful?
The first 6 months are needed to establish the status quo and a future state blueprint with a daily task force with clear objectives. After a while, it can be weekly. Monthly reporting on board level by leads with the clear output KPIs, project plan progress, opportunities identified, people, process, technology, the normal shebang. Ensure that all relevant parties are part of the task force. No helicopter solution by corporate without proper engagement of outsourced unit. From all I've seen in my 30 plus years, it always fails if the people that should be outsourced are not part of the solution.
And how can you sustain the success over time?
We need quarterly business review with outsourcing partner and own head of operations, again based on clear dashboards. Reviews to be at the beginning always physically at the outsourced operation with adequate time for deep dives on the production and or engineering floor, not just sitting around in the conference rooms.
It is fairly obvious that there is a high digitalization level needed. What do you see as most important?
The sales and operation planning process, or as well called S&OP, needs to be fully interlinked and validated, mainly on your side. And that means are the signals that the S&OP process send throughout the supply chain, are they correct? A typical data lake and clear API structure must be defined and implemented for most other systems into the outsourcing partner.
How about the risk? Changing or moving operations can be quite risky.
Very diligent planning and execution of every aspect of the outsourcing process is absolutely required. Pilot runs, where possible, are great, and there always needs to be an alternative design available. You don't want to come to a point of no return. You always have to have as well a viable threat to cancel the relationship.
What are the contractual requirements to consider?
The contractual side. Contracts must be designed to protect both sides rather than just hoping for the best. So no contract with a honeymoon, but with a clear prenup mindset. Get external talent to help if your team has never made an outsourcing contract. This is the 600-pound gorilla of contracting. You need good people for that.
And what about cost?
You need to set up an internal task force team full time and then eventually employ as well a small external team to support project management. If done well, the cost of outsourcing is not impacting the bottom line in the years of execution. If you need to know more, talk to your CFO.
So, finally, what are the things to watch out for?
There is a risk of lowballing of your own cost internally by comparing different cost levels between your operation and the outsourced partner. During the analysis, there is the need for high confidentiality until a recommendation can be made. The internal task force should be run for the first 6 months best offsite. All people involved need a non-disclosure agreement and, if possible, a success and or retention bonus and or a job in the new setup. Let's come to a summary. Outsourcing or spin-offs are no longer the panaceas as they were in the last 30 years. Still, they continue to be a well-used tool in the toolbox of every CEO, CFO, and head of operations of a certain age, and every major consulting company. A decision on outsourcing or spin-off should be well informed by looking at alternative tools in today's world, such as reshoring, re-vitalising operations, and assessing the long-term viability of the solution, considering triple bottom line consideration. Today, experience is overvalued in a world where change velocity is ever increasing. Management traits needed today are agility and digitalization. In other words, having a lot of experience in and outside the company on spin-offs and outsourcing might be the wrong tool for today's and tomorrow's problems. Just think about it. What if the solution to join two parts is no longer a nail, but Velcro? What do you do then with a hammer? Thank you very much for listening to episode 6 of the Supply Chain Dialogues podcast.
A big thank you as well from me. Stay safe, stay bold, and start your bold actions by subscribing to our podcast on our website or on Apple Podcasts. Take good care.
Bye until hopefully the next time.